Good evening and welcome to The Law of the People and Governance here on Spectrum Television. It's a beautiful Tuesday evening, and of course this is a program that bridges the gap between the government and the people. This is a program that talks about government policies and other socio-economic activities here in Nigeria. My name is Rachel David White. Well, today on the program, we'll take a look at some reports that are making the rounds currently here in Nigeria. And we are starting from the report that has to do with the former or suspended Central Bank of Nigeria governor. Well, today, the Federal High Court in Lagos had granted bail to the suspended Central Bank of Nigeria governor, Godwin Emefiele, in the sum of 20 million naira, headed by Justice Nicholas Owebo, the presiding judge. It ruled today that the charges against Emefiele are bailable, and the bail was granted with one surety in like sum. Additionally, the judge ordered that Emefiele be held at the Ikoyi Correctional Center pending the perfection of his bail. The trial is scheduled for November 14th. Well, Emefiele was arraigned on 2 counts of illegal possession of a single-barrel shotgun and 123 rounds of live ammunition. He pleaded not guilty to the charges. Emefiele's lawyers, led by Justice B. Dauda, Senior Advocate of Nigeria, had filed the bail application seeking to secure his release on self-recognition. Dauda had argued that his client had fulfilled all the conditions necessary to make the application right for hearing. He also stated that the proof of service endorsed by the Attorney General of the Federation's office was in the court's file. And the government's lawyer, Deputy Director of Prosecution N.B. Jones, had denied receiving the bail application. Meanwhile, we've had, of course, updated story that the DSS had packed their van, of course their Hilux pickup van, in a way that looked like he was about to be rearranged. Of course, the DSS had been asked to rearrange him until the bail was being perfected. So when that is done, we'll still give you updates about that. Well, don't forget that immediately after President Bola Ahmed Tinubu came into office some days later, he started with the suspension of the Central Bank of Nigeria governor, Godwin Emefiele, followed by the EFCC chair, Abdulrasheed Bawa. Well, this has continued to stir up so many controversies, and now we're seeing Emefiele, obtaining bail from the Federal High Court sitting in Lagos to the tune of 20 million naira and a surety in like sum. Well, there's so many questions to be asked as well. Let's just get to the next report. When we come back, we'll talk better about that. Now, this is taking us to the Senate. Well, the leadership of the Senate yesterday met top traditional rulers in the country. And according to reports, the leadership of the National Council of Traditional Rulers of Nigeria were on a courtesy visit to the National Assembly, Abuja. And while addressing the demands of the rulers, the Senate leadership said amendment, and this was in response to a request by the leadership of the National Council of Traditional Rulers. Workers said that the 1999 considered society and maintaining the unity of the country as well. And they said that they had tried several times to rectify the problem. That the Senate was aware of the importance of traditional rulers in nation building, and he said the Senate would consider their request in the next constitutional amendment. Pabio said that the traditional rulers had key roles to play in governance, especially in the area of ensuring the security of lives and property, and also said that if traditional rulers were constitutionally engaged in governance at the grassroots, the myriad of security challenges facing the country would be a thing of the past. Let's just get to listen to what they said during their meeting.
The request that you have made before us is not strange. It's something that if we had the opportunity to visit all of you whilst we were struggling to take over the leadership of the Senate, we probably would have made it as one of the manifestos. And we would have made it as one of the manifestos and said, please, we want royal blessing. But before you give us the royal blessing, we promise you that we will definitely do everything possible to work with the House of Representatives and all our colleagues to create a rule in our constitution for the traditional rulers in Nigeria.
We urge you to please look into this aspect of role in the national Nigerian constitution, including the traditional constitution. Give us roles to support, to advise, to mobilize all the policies, all the people we have, support the policies, promote the programs, and then let our people feel sense of belonging.
The request that you have made before us is not strange. It's something that if we had the opportunity to visit all of you whilst we were struggling.
All right, so before now we had discussed about the monarchs actually having a constitutional role. Of course, they had made their request known to the Senate, but according to the monarchs, their plea or their request was actually abandoned by the former administration, and they are hopeful that this administration was going to give them a listening ear. But if you follow the story very well, it looks like this administration is definitely going to carve out a constitutional role for them. And also following the words of the Senate President Godswill Akpabio of how important the traditional rulers can play a good role in governance and nation building concerning the aspect of security. Well, I think that is a very strong point to look at, considering that they are the ones that actually get to have a face-to-face interface with this security issues, starting from the grassroots as well. All right, so away from that, we have another report to look at, which will form part of the basis of our discussion on the program today. We're heading to take a look at what is happening in the president's cabinet. Of course, the president was expected to come up with his ministerial list this week, and maybe a long time ago. Well, President Bola Tinubu has up till 28 July to send his ministerial nominees to the Senate for screening and confirmation in accordance with the Nigerian Constitution. Well, let's go to the Constitution. The Constitution, following amendments by the last Parliament, stipulates that the President and governors have, from the date they are sworn in to office, a 60-day window within which to appoint ministers and commissioners as well. Section 42 of the Constitution states that, subsection A, the nomination of any person to the office of a minister for confirmation by the Senate shall be done within 60 days after the date the President has taken the oath of office. And subsection B says not less than 10% of the persons appointed as ministers shall be women, provided that the President may appoint a minister at any other time during his tenure, and such appointment shall be subject to confirmation by the Senate. And the document also provides that the President shall appoint at least a minister from each of the 36 states of the Federation. While President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, who was inaugurated, there are speculations that President Tinubu may have submitted the ministerial list to the Senate last week, but the upper chamber is delaying the announcement because of some changes being effected on the list. And report says that one of the changes considered for the chairmanship of the ruling All Progressives Congress APC, while Mr. Ganduje is being tipped to replace Abdullahi Adamu, who resigned last week alongside the party's national secretary Yola Omishere, and the former Kanu governor is reportedly favored by the president over a former governor of Nasarawa State, Tanko Al-Makura, who had been positioned to take over from Mr. Adamu, while Ms. concerns that the upper chamber may not have the time to screen the nominees before embarking on recess this week, thereby extending the period Nigerians will wait before ministers assume duty, if cleared. So should the list arrive at the Senate this week? Now, the upper chamber, which sits thrice a week, Tuesday, Wednesdays, and Thursdays as well, may shift its recess to take some days off to screen the nominees before embarking on a vacation. And the delay in announcing the cabinet ministers has led to emergence of several lists of ministers which the government itself disowned. In the last few weeks, several lists of nominees had surfaced media. In some of the lists, names of political allies of the president and former governors featuring had urged Nigerians to disregard the list. Well, although President Bola Ahmed Tinubu is yet to appoint ministers, he had made some other appointments since his inauguration, with the latest being that of the 28th earlier this month. And before then, he had made other appointments, including that of the Secretary of the Government of the Federation, Chief of Staff, and Deputy Chief of Staff, made on June 2nd. On the 15th of June, he had appointed 8 advisors, including Delela K, a special advisor on special duties, communications and strategy, and of course Wale Edun, a special advisor on monetary policies. And thereafter, on June 19th, he appointed another set of people comprising the National Security Advisor, the Service Chiefs, the Inspector General of Police, and of course others. And he also set up a committee on tax reforms headed by fiscal policy partner and Africa tax leaders as well. So we'll take a look at what the delay may likely cost to the economy of Nigeria, and of course questions as to is President Bola Ahmed Tinubu towing the path that the former president, Muhammad Buhari, had told. Because upon the assumption of office of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, he appointed his ministers about 6 months after he was inaugurated. And of course, on the 6th of October that year, the then Senate President Bukola Saraki had read out a list of 21 ministerial nominees sent by the former president for confirmation. And of course, Buhari adjusted a little after his re-election in 2019, when he appointed his ministers about 2 months after. On a 23rd July 2019, the Senate, under the leadership of Ahmed Lawan, had unveiled a list of 44 ministerial nominees comprising of many of those in the previous cabinet that were subsequently inaugurated on 21st of August that year. Well, let's just go on a short break. When we come right back, we'll talk better, and of course our guests will be ready to talk to us by then. So do stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Nigerian police, which is the only one allowed by grossly abused. Our governors have to share police powers with the president as stipulated by the Constitution. We do not have a federal government police force. We have the Nigeria Police Force, which shall be administered, organized, and supervised by the Nigerian police.
No, my lord, I want to say something. I want to say something here. Perhaps it might also enlarge the scope of people who should be invited here for examination. My lord, if we cannot find those who literally murdered Abiola, who are those people who could be...
He linked you with the attempted murder of Hebrew.
He did not.
My lord, the matters council is leading the evidence in our matters.
Is this an adversary proceeding?
It's not, my lord, but we can't be talking about cases which are in court,
Is this an adversary proceeding?
It's not, my lord. These cases are in court, my lord. I'm just reminding your lordship.
My lord, sorry, my lord, I think I'll be in cross-examination.
Legally Speaking, a program that deals with legal issues and questions we face as citizens of this amazing country, Nigeria. Legally Speaking. Join us every
Friday from 5 p.m. to 6 p.m.
for Legally Speaking.
All right, welcome back to the show. It's still the law of the people and governance here on Spectrum Television and appointing ministers as members of his cabinet. Well, we're being joined. All right, hello, good evening, Daniel.
Yes, good evening. Hope you can hear me.
All right, welcome to the show.
I can. Yeah, thank you very much. Thank you very much.
How are you doing?
I can hear you loud and clear. I'm fine, and you?
I'm good. Okay, so before you joined us, we talked about of course, the bail that has been granted, and of course the fact that the DSS may be looking to rearrest the former suspended Central Bank of Nigeria governor, Godwin Emefiele, and we also looked at the position of the Senate concerning the traditional rulers as to giving them a constitutional role. And then, of course, we moved into looking at the delay, the possible reason for the delay in the president appointing his ministers.
Yes. Okay. I think we should start from the hottest one in the news, which is the rearrest of Emefiele, right? And we all saw the very shameful spectacle that occurred at court, where the DSS and the prison men of the prison service engaged in fisticuffs. You understand? They wanted to rearrest. Yes, I can see the footage there. They wanted to rearrest, and the prison officials were claiming, of course, and they are right, because they have the right to remand, right, till bail is granted. But, there's been a lot of controversy that has dogged the arrest of Emefiele from day one, stemming from the powers of the president to even sack or suspend in the first place, because the Constitution provides that if you want to remove the CBN governor, you must obtain 2/3 majority from the Senate, not even simple majority. There's no constitutional provision for suspension, but the president went ahead to suspend. And a lot of Nigerians did not even react so badly, maybe because of the Naira redesign and controversies that has also dogged the tenure of Emefiele as the CBN governor. So it was just almost a case of a good riddance, right? And even when we look at the way the market reacted rather positively. They reacted positively. So that means watchers believe that was the right move to make. But when you look at the fact that 2 consecutive CBN governors back to back have been sacked, the last CBN governor was sacked, was suspended, right? His passport was seized, but because he became Emir of Kano, I think that process was altered, maybe just to respect the royalty. Unfortunately, Emefiele is not as lucky as that. So, and if we now look at the very frivolous charge that was now brought against him by DSS, possession of illegal firearms, what we're hearing before were terrorism charges. The investigation is not watertight yet for them to actually arrest him, but they wanted to hurriedly arrest him. So everything is to actually keep him behind bars.
Daniel, let me ask, where do you think politics comes in here?
Yes, exactly. When we look at the fact that Emefiele himself actually almost desecrated that seat by also at a point vying for the candidacy of APC, and there has been a lot. They even went to court at some point, to enshrine that his constitutional rights to contest, right? And the Naira redesign as well. Some people believe that it was targeted at the candidate then, who is now the president, Bola Ahmed Tinubu. So when you look at that, I think even Emefiele had his hands politically soiled, because ordinarily the the position of a CBN governor of any country is supposed to be apolitical and non-partisan, and there's a reason for that, because the monetary policies of a country must be scientifically determined, must be econometrically determined. It is not something that you want to toy with politically. But when we look at what Emefiele himself has done, it's all politics. It's all politics, because if they want to persecute him, if they want to prosecute him, I think they should go on. But this, to me, appears like a desperate persecution to pay somebody, back, and that was displayed by the very shameful spectacle that we saw today, at the court.
Okay, I know I would love to talk more about that. Of course, many questions to be asked, but let's move a little bit away from that because of time, so we can actually touch other issues. Let's head now to the inclusion of the monarchs, or assigning constitutional roles to the monarchs, which they had already made their position known to the former administration. According to them, they had paid deaf ears to their position, and this administration seemed to want to carve out a space for them in the constitution.
A position for them, what would that position be? That is the question we should be asking ourselves. Because,
I think that's where security, okay, and of course nation building, but the aspect of security comes in. According to the words of the Senate President, it will help tackle insecurity from the grassroots, like the role they would play.
Yes, the thing is, it will help tackle security from the grassroots. The truth of the matter is that traditional institutions, by virtue of those institutions, actually play certain roles in the grassroots. And I think for them to even play any role, we must strengthen our community policing. Maybe we need to also devolve the federal police so that we can have state policing. Because at the end of the day, if you say you want to give them a role, let us also remember that there are also tussles of traditional stools, even in some places. You see two people claiming, I am the king, another person claiming I am the king. We have first class obas, we have second class, we have, So how they are going to integrate that into the security architecture. Some of these things is very easy when they say it, but how they are now going to integrate that will be the implementation is the meat. It is not coming to say, oh, we want to do this, or we want to do that. Because naturally, or by convention, the traditional rulers are actually still playing that role. But I believe it is more of a debt of community policing than maybe incorporating or not incorporating traditional institutions into our policing system, generally.
Daniel, away from policing, having state policing, and away from security aspect, now what important, or do you see any other important role that should add to nation building or the development of the country as well? Do you see any important role or any that could be assigned to the traditional rulers if they actually have to carve out a place for them in the Constitution?
Okay, before we carve out a role for traditional institutions, let us look at the three tiers of government as constitutionally presently spelled out, right? We have the federal, we have the state, we have the local government. Now, it is obvious and it is very evident that governance is not getting to the grassroots. When you look at our rural poverty, we have about 72% of people living in rural areas are poor, despite the fact that, according to Nigeria Bureau of Statistics, approximately 70% of Nigerians actually stay in the rural area. 72% of these people are poor. 90% of children in the rural area are also poor. So that shows very evidently that governance is not getting to the grassroots. And if you remember, there was a time there was a constitutional amendment that was passed to the state assemblies for local government autonomy. The governors voted against it because that wanted to give the local government autonomy, and I believe the intention of the president then, the former president, was to ensure that the local governments also have autonomy over funds, because for now they are more or less lackeys and appendages of the governor. In fact, it is so bad sometimes that a governor can decide to hold elections or not hold elections. Sometimes a governor comes and
just
removes
select
local
persons, chairman.
Yes, they just remove local government chairman. So before we want to incorporate traditional rulers, and I think we should operate what we have very well first. It's very or personal reasons not to operate it as it should be, right? If you look at recently too, there is the controversy surrounding the National Social Register, right?
Yes.
The governors are coming and saying, the governors are coming and telling us that the National Social Register lacks credibility. The questions we are asking ourselves is that, yes, what is the National Social Register? The National Social Register, as it is an accumulation or an aggregate sum of the state social registers. So the National Social Register was formed by the states. They've uploaded the data from the ministries of planning in different states. So what you have in the center is what the states passed across to the center. So if the governors come and say this thing lacks credibility, then we should be asking the governors,
where did you get the information from?
Exactly, where did they get their information from? So this goes to tell us the kind of politics that takes place between the federal and the state over resources. And I believe let us operate what we have very well first before we further complicate it by saying we want to bring traditional rulers in.
Into the Constitution.
Traditional rulers in, are they going to be operating at this? Yes, are they going to be operating at the state level, or are they going to be operating at the local government level, or we are going to create another tier of government?
Well, there had been an argument on that. Of course, according to the traditional monarchs, the fear of the past administration may have been that another tier of government wanted to be created, or maybe that was their intention, feeling that was their intention, but they had said, no, that wasn't their intention. They don't need another tier of government. They just need to be assigned a role in which they can play as well. And then talking about the issue of National Social Register, we took time to discuss about that yesterday, and of course would be made known to that National Social Register is being collated at the state level, and of course it's been sent to the federal government to take a look at and of course assign resources to get to these persons, most vulnerable persons.
Yes, definitely. You know, the thing is, the National Social Register as it is has been, in quotes, endorsed by the World Bank, because NASCO, the National Register for the Social Safety Net, Social Safety Net Coordinating, the National Social Safety Net Coordinating Office, National Bureau of Statistics. You also have World Bank, you know, coming together to populate the social register. But I think the problem has always been ASO. And obviously, what I see there is another political tussle. And I believe the governors want to be in control of what goes to their states. But if we look at antecedents of governors and how they've been managing resources as it is, I would say some will do well, and maybe most will not do well. Because when we look at what happens at the federal and what happens at the state, there are quite a number of states where there's a particular state where the state assembly did not operate for a very long time because a particular governor decided to go and remove the roof of the the state assembly. We also know the state assemblies where you have two speakers, you know, fighting. One is the candidate of the governor, one is the candidate, you know. So it devolved to the states. We, the citizens, might now have to be gatekeeping 36 gates rather than gatekeeping one gate that you are presently gatekeeping.
All right, I want to, Daniel,
so
let me
me,
cut you there.
yes.
Let me cut you there and move a little bit from the issue of the monarchs being assigned a constitutional role. And looking at our time, let's just get into the fact that the delay in the president's appointing his ministers and, of course, forming a complete cabinet. You are aware that the Constitution gives 60 days, within 60 days in office, after the president may have been sworn in. Of course, he has within 60 days to appoint ministers and, of course, name his cabinet. But this happens to be a different case here, although he still has few days left to do that. But talking about that, are you in any way worried about the delay?
Yes, like you have said. Constitutionally speaking, there is no delay. The Constitution gives a 60-day window from inauguration, right? But when we look at the expectations, the economic headwinds that we are facing, it is obvious that the captain of the ship needs a crew to help him manage the ship. So there is an expectation of Nigerians that he should hit the ground running. And indeed, he actually hit the ground running. On the first day, he decided to remove petroleum subsidy. Within 14 days, he had went ahead to liberalize the FX market. And those two levers have been there have been issues before now that people have been yearning for, that this should be done. So he hit the ground running. But running a government is more than declarations and making certain decisions. You have to manage the process. And to manage that process, you need your team in place. So I agree, he has appointed certain special advisors, service chiefs for security, but the team needs to be complete, at least to meet the expectations of Nigerians. And going by the antecedents of the president himself, a lot of people call him a team player, a talented hunter. He works with the best hands, and all this. One would expect, right, that somebody like that, even under 30 days, should have a team in place. He won election in February. We have February, we have March, we have April. He came in May.
So he may have started planning before then.
Yeah, so we expect simplistically speaking, but I know that it's not that simple, because politics is very complicated. There are a lot of moving parts. There are a lot of interests to sort out. There are a lot of calculations to be made. So maybe that is what is causing the delay. But that does not justify the delay. Anyway, let us remember, the president got 25% in 29 states. Some people made that happen. Those people will now want certain things back. And I don't think he can have more than 42 to 44 ministers.
Let me ask you a question. Let me ask you a question, Daniel. Are you listening? Now, the fact that some people made it possible, of course, like you said, to put the president in office. And then, does it really mean that he has to maybe pay them back by appointing them into office, even when he knows that they are not capable of running that office?
Oh, yes. The thing is that in politics, there must be a balance between competence and political capability. Because whether we like it or not, that is why politics is more complicated than corporate environment, private sector, right? Because in politics, a politician still wants to win an election, win his next election. A politician wants to remain politically relevant. So a politician most of the time wants to balance the two. How do I choose competent people without eroding my political base? So, and most of the time when you see cabinets, you see a mix of politicians and technocrats. And we also have politicians that are also technocrats at the same time. So that is what makes it complicated. Balancing competence and also balancing political favors. But we'll be naive. We'll be naive, or we'll be, you know, or we'll be utopian, right? If we come here and say, oh, everything is based on competence. Even the Constitution mandates the president to pick at least one minister from each state, right? So that means even if he cannot get a competent minister from his state, by constitution, he must pick one at least from each state. And that is for national spread, that is for national character. So all those things come into play in forming a cabinet. But that said, I believe the cabinet will have been formed before now, factoring in what we are facing presently as a country. We need all hands on deck. We need boots on ground. We need people at their desk working day and night, and the president cannot do it alone.
Yes, you're right, and that's why there has been some worries that until now the president hasn't yet fixed persons who should be members of his cabinet. And of course, if he had done that, maybe he would have formed a proper economic team to oversee of some of the things that are affecting Nigeria's economy. But do you think that the delay in appointment of the cabinet members may have any effect or take a toll on the nation's economy or governance as well?
Yes, the thing is that it is not too late yet. We still have 60 days. I don't think there's anything the ministers will have done to turn the tide of what is happening. I don't think so. But maybe in terms of confidence to the people, confidence to the international community, for psychological reassurance, right? To people to know that now this is the Minister of Petroleum, this is the Minister of Agriculture, for us to be looking at these people and looking forward to what we expect them to do. In that case, yes, but there is no way subsidy will be removed. There's no way exchange rates, will be liberalized. That we will not see what we are facing, because Nigeria as a country has been facing quite a lot even before now. The poverty issue has been there, infrastructural deficit issue has been there, security issues has been there. Some of these problems are perennial, and I don't think there's anybody that will come in 60 days, that will change that tide or that will turn around that tide. But like I said, it is better to have them so that we will know our headache. If there's going to be any headache, we know that this is our headache. This is the minister. Okay, this is this person. This is that person. Rather than not having, at all. But I don't think, as of now, the absence of ministers, I don't think, as at yet, is negatively impacting the economy in scientific terms. I don't think so, because he has special advisors and he has been making certain decisions, right? He has his NSA already. There's the agricultural master plan that is putting the issue of food security under the purview of the National Security Council. The NEC, the City National Executive Council. Some decisions have been made even without ministers, but you need ministers to midwife these policies. You need ministers to guide these policies. You need ministers to give the confidence to the people that the president is ready to work for them. So in that light, to that extent, I think ministers are needed. And anyway, whether I like it or not, between 2 to 3 days, he must send his list. Yeah, or else we break the constitution. And from what we have heard, the list is already, in the Senate. That is the rumor we are hearing. But whether we like it or not, that 60-day window is about to be elapsed. And if it does not do that, it will be breaking the law. And I'm very sure he wouldn't want to break the law. So if we have waited for 57 days, I'm very sure we can wait for 3 days or 2 days more. Thank you.
Okay, yeah, one last question, Awolaja. Let me ask, what are your expectations? Of course, the president was, according to his words, he wanted to hit the ground running, and as you have confirmed that he has hit the ground running because of some of the policies which he has made that were pending and of course needed to have been made, which he has actually made. Now, let's say you're being asked of your expectations of the president's first year in office. What are your expectations? Let's say in the first 1 year, I expect the president to do this, do that.
Okay, yeah. In the first 1 year, let me say, what we are facing now is hard. We should expect other times because there are other decisions that I still expect the president to make. You know, he hit the ground running, and the evidence, one of the evidence, that he hit the ground running was that first day people started running to the filling stations to fill their tank because he made a very loud pronouncement, a very hard decision, right? And that is why we are facing what we are facing. So, in the next 1 year, I expect the president to take food security very, very important. Those gains will not crystallize, those gains will not materialize even within 1 year. But I believe we should have been seeing certain moves in certain direction. Because as it is, food inflation is contributing to our core inflation. With food inflation galloping like this, we are going to be struggling with poverty, whether we like it or not. An average Nigerian spends between 55 to 60% on food. Food inflation is galloping. Something must be done about that.
Okay, Awolaja Daniel, thank you so much. I'm just looking at our time. We're out of time. Okay. Thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
All right, you'll have a great day. All right, thank you so much for staying glued to your TV. It's been the law of the people and governance here on Spectrum Television, and we are coming back tomorrow, of course, to talk about government policies and, of course, political trends here in Nigeria. So keep a date with us. Meanwhile, don't forget to follow us on social media and subscribe to our YouTube channel, all of which you can find on our website, SpectrumTv.ng, and also follow us on Twitter at SpectrumTOnline, all as one word. My name is Rachel David White. Enjoy the rest of your evening.